In this video, we'll dive into the adventure of Tony Stark from the Marvel Noir universe. The Tony Stark from this universe made his first appearance in Iron Man Noir, which was released in 2010. Industrialist turned adventurer, Tony Stark was more than a man. He was a legend in ink and in person, and the star of Marvel's, a magazine of men's adventure, with his loyal companion James Rhodes, his brilliant assistant Dr. Gilletta Nefaria, and their tireless chronicler Virgil Muncie. In his latest expedition, Stark ventured deep into the heart of the British Honduras, guided by whispers of the legendary Jade Mask, an artifact that was believed to cure any ailment. The group stumbled across a wall with a carved picture of H-Book, a Mayan god of the dead. To gain access, Stark mentions that they need to make a blood sacrifice. He puts his hand into the mouth of PQ Kimmy, a dog that leads the dead to the underworld. One Stark's hand starts to bleed, and a bright light appears, opening the pathway, causing the explorers to fall down a pit, crashing into a large pool of water. They find a small cavern with many skulls. According to Mayan legend, underground waterways were used to show different paths to the afterlife. Grabbing onto a rope, Tony Stark kisses Dr. Nefaria and dives into the water. He led the group through the underwater tunnels, and once they entered another cavern, and to their amazement, they discovered an emerald temple. As Tony reaches the top, he finally found the Jade Mask that he was looking for. He tries it on, hoping that it would cure his heart problem, but nothing happened. Dr. Nefaria approaches Stark. She asks if the mask has any magical powers, but sadly he tells her that he is still the same old Tony Stark. But she replies to him saying that she loves the way he is, while also reminding him that he is still handsome and brilliant. But then, without warning, she pulls a gun on him. She then orders Stark to give her the mask. But lucky for Stark, James Rhodes was not far behind, pointing his gun at the back of Nefaria's head. But then another group arrived on the scene, led by Baron Zemo and von Strucker. Both are members of the German army. Strucker shoots Virgil in the head, showing that this encounter would not be like Tony Stark's other adventures. Then Zemo demands Stark to hand over the mask. Stark hands over the mask to Nefaria. As she tries on the mask, Tony drops his torch that quickly causes a huge fire to engulf around Dr. Nefaria. Both Tony and Rhodes jumped off the top of the temple, grabbing onto vines, and swung away as Nefaria's face was scorched by the inferno. Zemo and Strucker begin to fire their weapons at our heroes. Tony plants dynamite into the wall of the cavern and sets off the charge, blowing a hole into the cavern, causing water to rush in, and sweeps Tony and Rhodey out of the cavern and into the ocean. Both men are rescued by two women and taken back to shore. Back in New York, in front of the American press, Tony reveals that even with the sad news of Virgil's death, the Marvel magazine will continue. And in his place, Tony hired a sharp, intuitive assistant named Pepper Potts. Later that day, Stark and Rhodey return to one of Tony's labs, where they are approached by a huge armored man with his guns pointed at them. The man inside the suit was Tony's engineering assistant Jarvis. He orders Tony to lay down on a table so that he could charge Tony's heart. In this universe, it is not clear as to what caused his heart to be damaged, but he needs regular charging treatments to stay alive. Jarvis tells Tony that his adventures are becoming more reckless and could make his condition even worse. But Tony replies that he needs to have these adventures for people to read about, as times are dark with the threat of war approaching. That evening, Tony makes a discovery. Buried in Nefaria's belongings were a couple of journals. One name stood out, catching Stark's attention: Atlantis. He quickly calls Rhodey and tells him that they are going on the adventure of a lifetime. With no time to lose, Stark, Rhodey, and Pepper Potts travel to Spain, where they board a ship owned by the famous sea captain Namor, and his ship the Dorma. Stark tells Pepper about their mission, to not only find the Lost City of Atlantis, but to find a special material called orichalcum, an ancient metal of myth, said to channel life, light, and power. The metal was what caused the sinking of Atlantis. Days later, they arrived at the location believed to be the resting place of Atlantis, using a submarine created by Stark Industries. Stark, Rhodey, Pepper, and Namor board the submarine and dive into the ocean. As the submarine dives deeper, they found the ruins of Atlantis. The submarine approaches an entrance to a cave, and within it, Stark found the trident of orichalcum, a relic of unimaginable power. The men remove the trident and loads it into the submarine. Back on board Namor's ship, they are surrounded by Zemo's men. They ordered Stark to surrender it to them. Stark refuses and is attacked by a soldier. Stark tries to warn Zemo about the dangers of the Trident, but he is interrupted by Dr. Nefaria. Now with a jade mask fused to her face, she tells Stark that she planted the journals knowing that he could not resist in searching for Atlantis. Rhodey tells the group to get below decks. Tony insists he can get to the Trident. He reaches for a button that releases a smoke bomb. In the mayhem, Stark runs up to Zemo hoping to get the Trident, but he is overpowered. Then Rhodey grabs Stark and head to the lower decks. But they discovered that Pepper was taken and was loaded onto a small motorboat. With the ship's engines sabotaged, they can't go after motorboat. A few meters away, they spot a German submarine. The Germans fire a torpedo at the damaged boat and it explodes. Pepper sits helplessly watching her friends being blown up in the middle of the ocean. Little did they know that Namor led Tony and James Rhodes down into the lower decks to his secret submarine, the Real Dorma. They escape just before the torpedo hits the ship. Feeling worse for wear, Tony starts to mumble to himself saying that it was his fault, and then he passed out. Tony awakens with Jarvis staring down on him. Stark finds wires and cables connected to his heart, slowly recharging him. Aboard his airship, Stark and Rhodes plan to rescue Pepper and get the Trident back. Tony decides to take the Iron Man armor. However, Jarvis tells him that he is not strong enough to use the suit, plus it would cause great strain on his heart. Stark believes that he can get in and out within 4.5 hours. The two argue back and forth until Tony orders him to help charge his heart and get the suit ready. Jarvis walks away with a pleased look on his face. During a briefing, Jarvis tells Stark and Rhodes that they need to get in and out before the German reinforcements arrived. Jarvis shows Rhodes a suit of armor called the War Machine, and afterwards it begins to charge Tony's heart. The guards at Zemo's castle continue with their patrol. One of them spots something in the sky. Iron Man and War Machine arrive to raise hell. They take down the guard with ease. Iron Man fired a small missile to explode a wall that led into a dining area filled with soldiers, knocking most of them out. With guns pointed at them, Iron Man and War Machine fight back without fear. While trying to decide their next course of action, a giant hand grabbed on Iron Man and froze him through a wall that led into a room with the captured Pepper Potts and Baron Zemo. Iron Man is shocked to see the creature that attacked him, a giant armored monster. Zemo called it the Arsenal, but for Tony, he recognized the design as one of his father's creations. Zemo became excited when Arsenal attacked Iron Man, again slamming him into the ground. Zemo mocks Tony by saying how he stole his father's designs. He removed his mask to reveal that he was Tony's father, Howard Stark. Still in shock at seeing his father, who he believed to be dead, can't move with the Arsenal pinning him down. Von Strucker appears and reveals to Iron Man that while his father was a prisoner, he was subjected to experiments causing him to become brainwashed, and once he was released and at the right time, they would have Howard Stark fake his own death and return to Germany with his plans and weapon designs to create an army of iron soldiers. With his power levels draining, Iron Man makes his move and starts to fight back against Arsenal. War Machine arrives into the chamber and both of them prepare to escape with Pepper. Dr. Nefaria attacks Iron Man with an axe, and with great delight, Pepper knocks her out with a hard punch. Both Iron Man, War Machine, and Pepper burst through a wall leading out of the castle. They are stopped in their tracks by a small party with tanks. Hoping to avoid a fight, Tony transforms his suit into an armored mobile tank with Pepper and War Machine riding on top. He races to the castle gate and jumps over the drawbridge before it closes on them. Jarvis arrives in the airship, and Iron Man charges at full speed, flies off a cliff and board the airship. They look back at the castle to see an army of airships flying towards them. Iron Man forced Jarvis and the others into the ship and closed the hatch, telling them that he is going back to the castle to get the Trident back. Jarvis warns him that he is running low on power, but Iron Man ignores him and flies off. On the main airship, Iron Man punches through the glass, hitting Strucker in the face. Now even more determined to get payback, he orders Strucker to give back the Trident. Strucker orders his men to kill Tony Stark. With power running dangerously low, Iron Man fought off the soldiers. Unimpressed with their soldiers, Zemo opened a door revealing an army of Iron Men. They attacked Iron Man, beating him down to the ground. Tony spotted the Trident and tries to reach it. Strucker, feeling that he had won the battle, continues to mock Stark, stating that he should have just kept his little adventures and let them get on with the war. Tony responds, saying that he will never give up. Strucker asks him what is he going to do? Kill them all and his father. Stark grabs a trident, telling Strucker that his father died years ago, and sets off a large surge of energy that destroyed the fleet of airships. In the middle of the explosions, Iron Man was able to escape and falls into the ocean with his power supply dying out. Once again, Tony Stark is spared from the jaws of death, with Namor arriving in his submarine. A week later in New York, Tony Stark, now recovering in hospital, he tells reporters that his magazine is coming to an end as he has a new purpose. Jarvis tells the reporters that Stark needs to rest and asks them to leave. Tony receives a phone call from Nick Fury informing him about a man in Latveria. Now, Tony feels maybe it's not time to hang up his adventure boots just yet. Tony plans to continue his adventures as Iron Man from now on.